As collectors and enthusiasts, we all have our grails, don't we? Well, this was one of mine for a long time. I found one in the end in the wild, and now I'm going to show it you today. So in this age of eBay or online collectors groups or Discord, it's pretty easy to get your hands on anything you need. But if you've got a particular grail, there is nothing quite like finding it out in the wild. I love that sense of treasure hunting. I love going around collectors fairs, car boot sales, charity shops, keeping an eye out for those things that are on my wants list. There's nothing like finding something, taking it home and setting it up or reading it or anything like that. Just that sort of the hunt in and finding things is a big part of the appeal of collecting for me. And I think if it's just something I want and then I look it up on eBay and find the best one and buy it, there's no real satisfaction in that. So I got into modding Game Boys quite a few years ago now and started amassing various tatty broken consoles that I was fixing up. And I had a lot of fondness for my original Nintendo Game Boy that I got way back in December 1990, long time ago, showing my age. And what I really wanted was to relive that experience of opening up that original console for the first time. So I had my eye out for a boxed Game Boy for quite a while. I did manage to get one or two, but the boxes were usually quite tatty and worn. And then I was at a collector's fair called Play Expo. Well, it was like partly a collector's marketplace, partly they had all sorts of consoles and retro games set up in this huge, great hall. I was wandering around there early one morning and found this. Not only did I find this, but I found it for a ridiculous price. I think it was like £40 or something at the time. I'll have to look it up. If it's different, I'll put a little thing down here because I'm sure I will have shared it on my Instagram at the time, so I'll have a dig back there. But the price was amazing. So when I asked to have a look at it, I wasn't expecting much from inside the box. But in this video, I'm going to show you what is inside there. And I think you'll agree with me. It was a heck of a find and one of my favorite moments in, in the history of my own collecting. And I'm still extremely fond of this. And it's something I'm still very excited to own. Even after all these years, every time I open it up, I get that same buzz. So yeah, check it out. Every time I hold this box, it just takes me straight back to December of 1990. I know it's commonly known that the Game Boy launched in 1989, mainly because it says it on the back of the console. It's got 1989 on there. But it launched in the UK in September of 1990. A friend of mine got one. I'd never seen one before. It absolutely blew my mind. I don't think I've ever been so jealous. So I saved and I saved and I saved. And just before Christmas of 1990, I bought my very own Nintendo Game Boy. It was just like this. This is not the one, sadly. And mine is long gone and very well loved. And I was fortunate enough to find this at a collector's fair called Play Expo in Manchester a number of years ago for a good price. And I couldn't believe it. As you can see from the box here, the condition is just magnificent. The artwork on the front of the box grabs me every time. The fact that it came with the Tetris cartridge, it came with everything you needed to play, including the batteries, which is the one thing that's missing from this bundle. But I still think that every time I open this up, I just get goosebumps. So without further ado, let's take a look at what we've got here. So the box itself with the little promo shots for the games that use the link cable on one side, Super Mario Land, and the weird battery adapter that was just gigantic. Yeah, so check out how 80s that photo is there. Even just handling the box and looking at it, I just love it. But I know you're going to want to see inside, so let's take a look. This was on my grail list for a long time. I know you can find these things on eBay fairly easily, but there's something about finding them in the wild. Anyone who's squeamish about polystyrene, apologies. You might have to mute this bit or just skip it altogether. But finding one that had the inner box with the full polystyrene lid intact was something that I really wanted for a long while. I'd had a few with tatty broken boxes inside. So when I found this one, I was excited as, and every time I try and release this little panel, I get anxious because I don't want it to break. So there we go, the full polystyrene top panel intact on this one. And here it is, the Nintendo Game Boy. So inside the box here, we got a little gap here. Now that would have contained the batteries. I've got 4 AA batteries on hand, so that's why we've got the gap there. We've got the console itself. You'll notice the little wall that separates the console and the link cable here is a little damaged, but it's fine. The actual screen has some very minor scratches on it, but in general it's in excellent condition. The console itself is in the nice lighter shade of grey. You get an idea of how it could have gone by looking at the little link port cover. I should probably replace that with one I can find that's got a matching colour, but this is the original one that came with it. The back as well is very slightly grubby just from being actually played. It's nice to know that this was actually used, but the condition is just superb. I mean, with a quick cleanup this is going to be like new, but I've basically never interfered with this. It's exactly as it was when I got it. Beneath the console we've got a couple of manuals. It hasn't got all the paperwork. I think it came with like various other leaflets and a warranty card and things like that, but we have got the owner's manual for the console itself. It's got some beautiful little hand-drawn illustrations in there going through how to operate it, how to troubleshoot it, how to put your batteries in and so on. Absolutely love this style of hand-drawn artwork that you just don't see so much anymore. And the instructional stuff with the use of the arrows and everything is just up my street. I love it. So yeah, that's our instructions for the console itself. And we've got the manual for Tetris, which is packed in with the console. So the cartridges came in these plastic clamshell cases, and the cartridge is slightly yellowed at the top, but again, I've not interfered with any of this. I didn't want to replace any parts with better ones. I wanted to keep it as the little wonderful time capsule that it is. Even the artwork on this, just, it takes me all... I mean, it's funny, I use these things all the time. I'm always working with Game Boys. But when I've got an original one like this that's not being tinkered with, no mods, nothing like this, it still always takes me back to my childhood and the thrill of finally having this whole video game system to myself and no one else interfering. I loved it. So yeah, I love these little cases. We've got our instruction manual for Tetris here as well, explaining what it is, what's our controls. It's funny to think there was actually a time when I didn't know how to play Tetris. It's just like so many years spent playing. You can do that with the link cable to connect and do 2-player. Speaking of the link cable, I've got that here. That's still in the bag. And it's actually, just very carefully get this out now. It's actually still got the original tie tag on it. It's absolutely brand new. The DMG-04 link cable. So DMG stands for Dot Matrix Game Boy, which is the console itself. So on the back, this is the DMG-01. So that's the code for the console itself, and various other accessories and things had other code names. In the little bag here, I've got the original stereo headphones. Again, these are, I mean, I've put them in to test them, but they are pretty much as new, unused. You got the blue for your left and the red for your right. It's got quite a kind of soft, flexible cable on this, and the angled connector to go into the bottom of the Game Boy there, like that. So you've got your headphone connector, and you can, do you know what, with this, I mean, I'm a big fan of Game Boy music, but I think one of the most underrated features of the Game Boy is how good the stereo sound is on it, because it's just got the little mono speaker built in. But when you actually plug your headphones, and it doesn't have to be these, it can be any headphones, but when you plug headphones in to the console, and you get that stereo separation on the sounds, it really does just bring those games to life. So if you have got a Game Boy and you've never really tried it with headphones on, Load up Super Mario Land, load up Tetris. It's honestly, it is amazing how good it sounds through those. I'm not going to try and, well, shall I try and get that back in? Let's see. Let's just carefully get all that to sit properly. That should do. You just got to try and squeeze it into this little gap here and make sure nothing gets squished when the Tetris cartridge goes back in. Same with this, I've done that a little untidily, so just fold over there a bit, fold over here, and then just very gently get it in place. You can see why this polystyrene wall has struggled a bit here. Anyway, let's get on to the main event, shall we? So we've got our console here. The cartridge, the battery cover is a little bit of a loose fit. So that means that this just over time has got closer together. I could heat it and push it out so it gets a better clip. I know how to do all these things and I know how to fix them and mod them, but as I say, keeping this as original as possible is always going to be my goal. So although you could get that rechargeable battery pack, honestly, it was massive. It was NiCad batteries, which had issues with memory and things like that in there. I have got one somewhere, and it does still work. It plugs into here, and you've just got like this great big chunky block, a bit like your modern day power bricks. But yeah, I was always a fan of the AA batteries, mainly for the weight of it. The way it's just kind of balanced to tilt more this way. It's comfortable to use. A couple of little flecks of dust on there. Just get those off. There's some tiny little bits of dust underneath the lens, but again, I'm not opening up and interfering with that. It's all fine. So switching on. And it works. And if I adjust the contrast dial, if you're not sure if there's any dead pixels or anything like that, just turn the contrast right down. There's a couple of bits flickering slightly, but in general, this is a pretty good screen. So let's switch it off. Let's do the deed, get our cartridge in. So yeah, I think right from the very first time I put the cartridge in and locked it in place, there are very few things as satisfying as slotting that in there and then booting up a game. Instead of that blank block turning up, you get the Nintendo logo. We've got the classic sounds, and we've got Tetris loading up. There are many games from that era that I'm very fond of. A couple of things about the games is like they were quite expensive and I was only a kid, so it was basically I was often buying the games based on the fact that they were cheaper. So like the AAA full price ones I didn't really get unless I traded them with friends or found them on a market or something like that. So I had a pretty random selection of games, but Tetris is always the one that I came back to. Let's just have a quick play on game B. So the A type just kind of goes on forever, and it was all about how many lines you could get. B type has a sort of messy stack there in place to start with. A few different bits of music, and again, like I was saying, the sounds on this thing is one of the things I fell in love with. Love all those tunes, but let's go with the classic. And you can choose how high that stack is, and you can choose how fast those blocks go. Let's have a go. Hey! That was nerve-wracking. It just never goes away. Love it. And when you beat the game, you get like the cool little band playing for you and the little dancers, and then you get the sort of shuttle launch, which is super exciting the first time it happens, and then when you're quite used to it, it feels like it takes an eternity. But I mean, although I've done loads of upgrades on these things in daylight, when you've got the display right in front of you there, that murky classic green palette, there's just something about it. This is never going to get altered. This one is always staying the absolute same. I think in many ways the original is just unbeatable. Congratulations. And then you get your high score, and yeah, you get to do it all again and again and again and again. So yeah, this is probably, well, absolutely one of my absolute favorite items in my collection. I was trying to think of what to do for a video this week, and I'd been, oh, I need to take batteries out. I'd been going through some of my collection, maybe thinking of having a bit of clear out, a bit of organising, and I came across this and thought, I know what I'm doing this week. So let's just carefully pack everything away again. I was obsessed, absolutely obsessed with carry cases. Still am. I love something to kind of pack and organise things. And yeah, so I had various different carry cases over the years. I think I probably spent more on those than I did on games at times. But yeah, so I think my original box, this is the thing, like I was in my early teens, I think, when I got this, and well, when I got my original Game Boy, and even back then I loved making and tinkering, and I'm pretty sure that my original polystyrene insert that came with my Game Boy I used as the basis for making my own carry case. I wish I had photos of the stuff I did back then. But we didn't have the digital cameras and phones because I'm that old. But what we do have is the memories, and opening this is like reliving some of those memories. So I wanted to share that with you today, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. So that was one of my many grails. I've got a whole list of things that I'm always looking for. There are more that I am still looking for now because, as I say, I love the thrill of the hunt and actually finding these things that I'm looking for. Let me know in the comments, what are the things that you have been looking for? Are you lucky enough to own one of these in its box? Have you got any other editions of the Game Boy or other handheld consoles still in their box? Let me know. What are the things that you're excited about finding? And what do you tend to lean towards? Do you go like me, just kind of keep hunting until you find it? Or are you more instant gratification, look it up, find it on eBay and get my hands on it as soon as possible? Let me know in the comments. And that's pretty much it for now. Something a little different. If you like this, do let me know. I'm trying to come up with different ideas from videos. I'm doing new videos every week. So if you like this, you'd like to see more of this kind of thing, let me know. So although this console is in its original immaculate condition, you may well know I'm a big fan of modifying Game Boys, particularly tatty, old, broken ones. If you're into modding Game Boys or you want to try it out, check out my link in the description for Z Labs. They sell loads of cool stuff you can get to make your Game Boy absolutely awesome. And if you want to know a little bit more about just what you can do with a Nintendo Game Boy, you might want to check out the video I've got up here. It'll give you a little bit of an insight as to how you can just give new life to that favorite old handheld. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.